Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karen Greer, CEO of Secure Content Technologies, and I am very happy to be here today with Max Perkins. He is the head of insurance for Spektrum Labs. Max, welcome. It's good to see you again.
Thanks. So good to see you too, Karen.
So we have what I consider actually a very captivating topic of, would your cyber insurance actually pay out if you had a claim? And that can go down a whole lot of different avenues. But I think the point I wanted to start with was cyber insurance was supposed to be a safety net for all intents purposes for customers. But I'm not actually seeing that in real life. And so I'm interested to see, when people file a claim, what's being paid, what's not being paid, kind of what's misunderstood at times. I was telling you earlier, I had a customer yesterday that sadly was breached very heavily. Even their backups were ransomware. When we started investigating with them, they didn't even fully know whether they had cyber insurance or business insurance. And so that took hours and hours to unravel. So I think we've got a lot to talk about. And I know you have 18 years in this insurance industry, so you've seen all the things. So I'm anxious to get your opinion on some of this.
Sure, happy to share. And it's complicated. I think it's the quick highlight statement as a preview for you. Where do you want to start, Karen? Do you want to start with, it's supposed to be the safety net? Like, where do you think we go?
Yeah, I mean, is it truly a safety net? Maybe that's the question of the day, because what I see is, and you're much more versed in this than me, what I see is people filling out all these questionnaires that cyber insurance companies put out, and maybe they don't even know the answers fully, or maybe the cyber insurance company is asking some wonky questions like, do you have a backup? Like, right? So maybe you can kind of shed some light there. Because I think those are really important points that would help our customers.
Sure, happy to. And it's this exact conversation is part of the reason why I left being inside of the cyber insurance industry, inside of insurance properly, to be at Spektrum Labs, a technology cybersecurity startup, because I know that what we do can help exactly what you're talking about with respect to validating your cybersecurity controls, because the process with cyber insurance, is it a safety net? Yes, it can be, and it should be, but it takes lots of hoops being jumped through, all the way from you filling out the application, through maintaining your policy, having it aligned to your operations so that your client who you had yesterday, they would have known that they had cyber insurance. They would have known that cyber insurer may say, we want you to work with our panel of vendors, or you have flexibility. There both ways are possible, but you sort of have to preordain. As we pre-plan funerals, sometimes you almost have to preordain and pre-plan your incident, and it has to be in lockstep. That's how cyber insurance can become and is successfully used as a safety net. Lots of claims which are covered are paid, but there are lots of hoops to jump through that lead to claims either being paid slowly, partially paid, or outright denied. So starting at the beginning, you were asking about the application. The application process, I know you know our CISO at Spektrum Labs, Josh Brown. Josh and I talk about all the time how the question that I'll be the one who raises his hand and says, I wrote many of the questions that are out there in the cyber insurance marketplace. I'm not a cybersecurity practitioner. I have some expertise at a sort of, call it a boardroom level, where I could engage with a CISO or a business owner about their information security posture and cybersecurity posture. But the problem is that these questions were probably directionally sound, that I and my colleagues in the insurance industry wrote, but they're not operationally aligned. And so what that means is that when a CISO or an MSP is filling out an application on behalf of their client or on behalf of their organization, they don't quite understand what we in the insurance world intended when we asked the question, because again, it's directionally sound, but not necessarily operationally. And so by answering the question, they take a risk, because they may be answering it to the best of their intentions, but it's not actually correct based on how the questioner was intending the question to be asked. So it's wild, and that alone is getting caught up. And I'll give you a quick example where claims managers look first, and I don't blame them, by the way, because unexpected claims, that's a bad position to be in the insurance marketplace. You're in the business of paying claims, but say multi-factor authentication, let's take that as an example. It's a question that gets asked: do you deploy multi-factor authentication across your network? And it's like, well, that's not the right question, because it needs to be directed to your users, and then for remote access, email, and in different forms. And do you have it enabled for access to backups, for example? If you just ask them one question, you could answer it one way or the other, and then it turns out it wasn't true in the specific scenario. And so the claims manager will go and look at the forensic report and say, there was no multi-factor authentication enabled on these backups, and these backups were implicated. So therefore, did they actually lie when they wrote the application? Should we just deny the claim or pay half of it? Or even we have rights to say there was misleading information or misrepresentation of the application. We can just cancel the policy ab initio, meaning at the beginning, return the premium, and say you never had coverage. That's a real scenario. It doesn't happen often. Insurance companies don't like to use it, but that comes up almost every time.
Yeah, and I don't think people actually intentionally try to mislead or misanswer these questions, right? But one of the things that really drew me to Spektrum Labs was you can help them with all of those answers on a daily basis, right? So it will check whether your MFA is fully deployed everywhere it should be and report that back to you, right? And so then you can then show that to the cyber insurance companies. Not only does that help with your rates, but it actually shows them the answers to the questions that they're asking you.
That's it. And it drives that transparency around the maybe the risk, the safeguards, and the controls are in place, and then how they're aligned to the operations of the organization. And then we'll keep tracking them so that the day that the event happens, you can look at the records to see, okay, what was going on in the environment? Was it just a bad day? Or was it that the client actually just stopped buying multi-factor authentication? I doubt that's the case, but crazy things happen. Or was it that a certain EDR or MDR, endpoint protection, was not in place on a server? That happened for one of our clients recently, where the CISO was saying, I think something's wrong, Spektrum. And we were saying, I don't know. We see how the data exchange are working. Your provider's saying you don't have this deployed on 2 servers. And he said to us, hold on, and came back and he said, well, I think you just paid for yourself, because it turns out it was not deployed. So helping him in the first place, and that would have been a really bad day had it not happened.
That's a really wonderful example. And I find that all the time. You think it's fully deployed on things, but having the proof of it, which is the Spektrum Labs piece, it actually does help you save on your cyber insurance claims.
It does. It helps you to save on it up front. And then, gosh, what if that person's organization had a claim involving those servers? Is it possible that claim was going to be called into question? And again, this is, my colleagues in the cyber insurance world would say, Max, what are you talking about? We pay all of our claims. We pay all of our covered claims. Like, that's absolutely true. And it's rare that there are disputes that have been taken to court, et cetera. We can go look them up. You just punch them into ChatGPT or any of the LLMs that folks want to use. You can find the examples. They're out there. But there's this bias from the insurance community that we really do pay all of these cyber insurance claims. And that's because we're paying a lot of them. But those are in the situations where, 1, the client knows they have it. 2, they've worked with their insurance policy, understand it. What are the requirements at the time of the event? Basically, if something's going on in your environment, if it is a true incident and not just something that you're investigating, if it's a true incident, you get the insurers involved right away, because in many circumstances, they require you to use their vendors. And And why? Because those vendors are really good, and they do offer better rates through the insurance community, and that helps the clients. Even if there's we have these retentions and deductibles. Say the deductible is fairly high, 50,000, 100,000. Some are even higher than that for global corporations. The rates for the insurance providers are much lower. So even if you don't pierce your retention deductible and it's all on you, the organization, you do save money. So that's part of the reason the insurance companies require you to use their vendors sometimes. Others, they'll say, fine, have flexibility. You want to bring your own, but it may cost you more upfront because so that's what they're doing. And it's all financial analysis at that point.
Well, and we had a discussion a month or so back about the association that you have, or the relationship that you have with Sophos in particular.
Sure.
We're a very large Sophos shop here.
Okay.
So marrying the two solutions together gives you an even better cyber insurance posture.
It does. And that's where I think take Sophos and their MDR product. When deployed and when configured properly, the insurance community has picked up on the fact that creates a much better risk, or a much better protected risk for them to accept. And so they are very interested in doing business with customers. Sophos is a great example where Sophos customers, where the MDR is present, it's deployed, it's configured appropriately. Sophos is able to manage the response immediately because, as I've learned since leaving insurance and being part of a cybersecurity company, the MDR providers, they're already in the system. And so there are many circumstances, most, in fact, almost all, are dealt with before anybody knows that there's an incident. It doesn't actually become something which creates potential harm or where ransomware can take root. And that's what the insurance underwriters are picking up on. And they will give heavy premium discounts. Sometimes they'll lower the retention or deductible associated with the incident response to nothing. In other cases, they'll give extra coverage if you go through this process that Spectrum's orchestrating and enabling to prove that Sophos is deployed, as the example here, and then matching it up with the insurer in the background. And my job is to make sure that we're bringing all the parties together. And it's a lot of fun to do because it's a different way of doing business in the insurance world. We're not used to that yet. Hopefully
it is.
Hopefully it'll be natural at some point. Yeah,
it is. And every time I talk about this, I call it a game changer because I really do feel deep in my heart that it is. And I see it working day to day. But so if I'm a leader and trying to close this gap that I know I have, what do they need to do now or before they take out a new policy, things like that? How can a leader prepare to take this journey down the cyber insurance path or the Spektrum Labs path, just so they're positioned in the right way?
Sure. I think Spektrum Labs path, call us, because the customers who come to us, we have almost 30 insurance carriers who, whether it's programmatic, like with the Sophos situation, where it's all within our platform, where you can confirm your partnership with Sophos or that you're a customer there and buy the insurance in the same flow. That's amazing, but that's not for everybody. So what we've organized, we have almost 30 cyber insurers who have said we will give preferential terms and conditions when presented with an export from Spektrum that shows these validated controls. And it's an export it's a PDF. You give it to your insurance broker to attach to the application. And these insurers they're eating it up, literally, because this is the data they want and they need. Why? It all goes back to capital. It helps them to have more confidence so they can drop the price down. And that's a great thing. What would I do? So that's selfishly, I would tell the business leaders, come to Spektrum and become a customer because it will help you. I promise it will help you with your cyber insurance. More importantly, it's going to help you to be a better secure organization just by telling you what your safeguards are doing at all times. in terms of the configurations, the controls, and that the licenses are present, and et cetera. The backups are available and are being tested. Beyond it, I would say to folks, like, there's probably some folks that would argue with me on this. If you don't have cyber insurance, speak to your broker about it as soon as possible, because you should be going for it. And this is where, like, look, we started off pointing with the holes, the difficulties with cyber insurance. If you speak with your broker and you again align it to your business, which is what you have to do right now. I hope there's a better day coming where it's easier, much more nimble. But for now, get on there and on that path, because it will be a safety net for you. I've seen, and when I was a broker, I had many clients who, I had one that was a publicly traded retail organization that had a ransomware event, and it changed their quarter end, because they're thin margins. They were already in a thin spot, and it changed their quarter end. The great thing is that in the next quarter they were able to restate because they had full recovery from insurance, and so that was a really positive outcome. Although the CFO was pretty nervous at one point. So get on board, get moving with it, and it's what I would say, and align it to your business. Make sure that you're working with a good broker who understands cyber insurance, because it's complicated. I'll give the one example we were talking about earlier, where there's some risk in there that that's been brought into cyber insurance that people don't realize is there. So related to website content and maybe offline content, covering libel, slander, defamation of character. This is called media liability. You're paying 10 to 15% of your premium goes towards that right now. And you may say, gosh, we don't really have an exposure to it. Why is that part of my cyber policy? It's because we needed something to be in there to help us sell the cyber policies when we were getting it really going in 2005 to 2010, before it kind of took off. And then there's some elements of crime insurance. So cyber liability, some folks would say, gosh, I had funds stolen from my account. Isn't that a cyber claim? Actually, it's crime, the way that insurance works. And so you need to know whether it's included in your cyber policy, because some do, or whether it's excluded, and you need a crime policy to cover you for that. And that's, again, I started with the words, Karen, that it's complicated. That's why we need the good brokers to be there to help us out.
I'll tell you what, complicated doesn't even begin to go there. They need another word for that than complicated.
Oh, I know it. And I have, we could talk about dreams all day, but that's where my head is right. Yeah.
Well, this was wonderful. I think that we uncovered a lot of different topics and things for people to think about. So any of you that are listening, want to learn more about Spektrum Labs or cyber insurance in general, anything along those lines, please reach out to me. I'm 25 years in this industry, so I think I can kind of help you along the way in a very ethical and trustworthy way. Max, I look forward to talking to you again. I think these conversations are incredibly helpful and entertaining even.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. I know we really appreciate it. Appreciate
Absolutely.
everybody listening. Yeah.
Talk to you soon.